Very well, and thank you so much for joining us. What a need on to begin with. Make sure every day the first thing you think about when you wake up is how you're going to make money and how you're going to help each other grow on a daily basis. I'm Rita Cabanyero. This is SMB, Smart Means Business, a show that will drive your business activities and also letting you know what is happening across the world of business and making sure that you're the first to know the latest updates in regards to business from with us here at Smart 24 TV. And speaking of that, we're going to be now first looking at the SMB reports, where the World Bank and the government of Uganda have signed a $180.3 million that is a grant financing agreement. This is geared towards implementing COVID-19 response and also emergency preparedness project. The Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, and the World Bank country manager to Uganda office, that is Mukimi Kairuki, signed the grant. But between the World Bank and government of Uganda towards economic recovery. But Dr. Ruth Acheng, the Minister of Health, also participated in the signing of the grant, agreeing that the $180.3 million for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccinations or vaccine programs.
The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Matia Kasaija, and the World Bank country manager to Uganda's office, Mukami Kariuki, signed a grant between the World Bank and government of Uganda for additional financing towards implementation of Uganda's COVID-19 response and emergency preparedness project agreements worth $180.3 million. Dr. Jen Ruth Acheng, the health minister, participated in the signing of the grant agreements worth $180.3 million for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines. Kasaija compelled the Ministry of Health to ensure that all government obligations before delivery of equipment are fully met.
I compare my colleagues from the Ministry of Health where this grant will be executed. Delivery of the equipment are fully met and to ensure that any issue that might delay delivery is handled expeditiously. I will not accept any delays in implementation of this product, of this support. I want to affirm to the country manager, Mama, that we shall fulfill our obligations under this grant.
Matia Kasaija, on behalf of the Republic of Uganda, appreciated the World Bank for the beneficial and cordial cooperation they have shown in other sectors like works and transport.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you very much indeed. Convey our heartfelt greetings and thanks to the World Bank in Washington that we are with what assistance they have given us, and we are trying to do our level best to make sure that we utilize these facilities the best possible. Thank you very much.
Mukami Kariuki, the World Bank country manager to Uganda, says that this grant will also support the ongoing exercise of the vaccination drive in the country to prevent the delay that have been ongoing.
The government of Uganda requested additional resources to provide for the vaccination of its population, to expand coverage to vulnerable groups, and to strengthen the continuity of essential health services. So we have, following this request, been working with the Ministry of Health to design an operation which is now in total $180.3 million that scales up the interventions under the parent project, which was the $15.2 million I mentioned, and also provides a total of $137 million for rapid COVID-19 vaccine procurement and deployment. And I think I wanted to stress the deployment because, as the minister mentioned, the exercise of getting the vaccines to the population will be supported.
Kariuki also appreciated the Ugandan government, Ministry of Health, for the good working relationship they have with the World Bank and promised that they will continue to render their support to the Ugandans.
We are honored, therefore, to have been part of Uganda's national response to COVID-19, and we seize this opportunity to thank the leadership and technical teams of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Ministry of Health, development partners, civil society and the private sector, who have all been contributing towards this effort. Finally, let me also say a big thanks to the government of Uganda and the World Bank technical teams who delivered this project in record time. We look forward to continuing this strong collaboration and partnership during implementation. And in this regard, we urge the government to accelerate the completion of the effectiveness conditions so that you can begin to benefit from the proceeds of this IDA grant. Finally, let me reaffirm the World Bank's continued commitment to supporting Uganda's development agenda. As you said, Minister, we're working in a number of sectors and we look forward to continuing in this regard.
Honorable Jen Ruth Acheng, Minister of Health, appreciated the World Bank for its continuous effort to support Uganda as a country in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. During the meeting, Acheng confirmed that COVID-19 positive response rate is as low as 1.5%.
Beginning of the pandemic in March 2020, Uganda instituted extraordinary measures, including lockdowns, to avert the major pandemic that has swept through the whole world. And many of you are aware what has happened over the times with Uganda experiencing 3 waves, and now out of the first wave. Today our positivity rate is as low as 1.5%, and it varies between 2 and 1%, which means the pandemic is under control.
Over 37,251,220 doses of vaccines were donated, and 15,610,547 doses of vaccines were administered, bringing the percentage of vaccinated people to 60%.
It took a concerted effort of government to mobilize resources to respond to this unprecedented disaster. The Ministry of Health is grateful that the World Bank was among the first development partners to join this fight. And the World Bank has since committed a total of US dollars 30.2 million towards the pandemic. The World Bank disbursed US dollars 15.2 through the contingency emergency response component under Uganda Reproductive, Maternal and Child Health Services Improvement Project. US dollars 2.7 under the UCREP grant, and US 12.5 credit under UCREP Parent Project. All these funds were disbursed timely and were very, very helpful in response to the pandemic. Today, 17th February, we are witnessing, and we have witnessed, the signing of the additional financing agreement of US dollars 180.3 million.
The World Health Organization allows for only 5% of wastages of the vaccine, but Uganda has seen 2% of wastages, mostly Moderna vaccine. The ministry is racing to inoculate at least 22 million people for effective control of the pandemic to guarantee the recovery of the economy, which has been battered by the COVID-19-induced restrictions. Vanessa Olopot, Smart 24.
Very well, very side from Ruth Acheng, the Minister of Health around the country. But just to remind you about the World Bank, the earlier on, how she was segmenting and breaking it down, the earlier funds used over 15 million US dollars, which went into health, and also over 8 million US dollars that went into livelihood programs, that is towards improving lives around the country. That money was all summed up at around 200 million US dollars that the government of Uganda received from the World Bank. That was December 2021, and the mitigation of that money was to be directed onto the effect of COVID-19 on the private sector investment, employment, and also supporting new economic activities, including the refugee hosting communities. Now, about 96 million was credited for International Development Bank Association that would be helping out the SMEs. Also, 104 million US dollars was an ID grant, that is of which 50 million of that money from the wind of the host communities of refugees, settlements, and among other refugee hosting communities was going to be receiving a 50 million on that grant to make sure that they're into supportive, or they're supporting the settlement activities there. But also the investment for industrial transformation employment aimed at creating sustainable employment and viable market opportunities by encouraging more investors onto investing more, and also Ugandan growth corridors to grow. But was this done very well? You could always comment onto our social media platforms at Smart24 TV. Please share with us what you think on how government spent at least a grant that was granted by them from the World Bank. But on the same grant, about 260,000 medium and small, small and medium enterprises were going to be benefiting directly from the Invite project of about 40,000, of which they expected women-led SMEs or women-led entrepreneurs or business people to be benefiting more. And around there, we have seen the government of Uganda disperse at least funds into the different banks, especially DTU, that is the Development Bank, to make sure people get maybe money on an interest rate. But the feedback we were getting from people is that, of course, the rates at which they were giving this money from was a little bit high, which limited some SMEs or small and medium enterprises to tap into that opportunity so that they can recover their businesses. But the program was there to providing and also financing options around SMEs, improving COVID-19 recovery or the COVID-19 injury that had caused a lot around the country. But like I said earlier, please do share with us what you think towards how the Ministry of Health and also government of Uganda, together with other sectors, have greatly responded, or how fairly, maybe fairly, or well, it would be your opinion on how the disbursement of funds around COVID-19 recovery has greatly impacted the economy. We continue to drive business around with you. Now let us look at how the commemoration of the United Nations World Wildlife Day 2022. This year's celebration will be under the theme Recovering Key Spaces for the ecosystem restoration. Now, on 20th December 2013, the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed that the third March of every year would be the World Wildlife Day celebrations that marks the beautiful and verified forms of the world. Now, fauna and flora are also to be on the rise awareness for the several benefits of the conservation, providing the world and Ugandans will be therefore joining the rest of the world to celebrate the United Nations Wildlife Day around 3rd March 2022. Let us now see what the country expects towards that.
While addressing the media, Tom Butime, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, revealed that this day will be celebrated under the theme Recovering Key Species for Ecosystem Restoration, which will be held at the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center in Entebbe, Wakiso District.
That on the 20th of December 2013, at the 6th session, at the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly, proclaimed 3rd March of every year as the World Wildlife Day, to celebrate the many beautiful and varied forms of wild fauna and flora, but most important, to raise awareness of the several benefits conservation provides to humanity. 3rd March this year, we shall celebrate the World Wildlife Day in Uganda. And the theme this year will be recovering key species for ecosystem restoration. Recovering key species for ecosystem restoration. And we will celebrate at Entebbe, at the Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center, Entebbe, in Wakiso district. Uwek really is the Entebbe Zoo, so don't get lost. You just go to Entebbe Zoo, that will be Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center.
Due to enhanced integrity of the protected areas arising from political stability and associated sustainable security, there has been general increase in wildlife population. However, more efforts are required to recover declining populations such as chimpanzees, lions, among others. Government particularly is gearing at addressing the poaching, habitat loss, killings, climate change effects, among other threats.
Due to enhanced integrity of protected areas arising from political stability and associated sustained security, there has been general increase in wildlife population in Uganda. For example, in 1983, between 1983 and 2021, buffaloes have increased from a mere 25,000, and today we have 44,163 buffaloes. From 25,000 to 44,000 because of stability and environment created for the buffaloes to multiply. Elephants, which were a mere 2,000, we now have 7,975 elephants. The giraffes from 350 to 2,072. Similarly, mountain gorillas have increased from 320 to 459 between 1999 and 2022. Government has been able to successfully reintroduce the rhino back to Uganda, which has been extinct in the early 1980s.
Butime also emphasized Ugandans to promote local tourism and reminded the Uganda Tourism Board to boost both domestic and foreign tourism, since Ugandan tourism will not only grow basing on foreigners.
The experience from COVID did now show that it's very important for us to rely upon ourselves as Ugandans, East Africans, if we want tourism to develop. Because you may not necessarily, you can't build your tourism just expecting the foreign tourists to come and boost it. So, Uganda Tourism Board now has two very important duties to perform. One of them is to boost tourism domestic, but at the same time attract the tourists from outside the country. So the budget now both supports domestic tourism and attraction of tourists from outside the country. So that is our program.
Uganda ranks among the topmost biodiversity-rich countries globally. The theme, Recovering Key Species for Ecosystem Restoration, draws attention to the critical role that keystone species of plants and animals, many of which are threatened or endangered, play in ensuring ecosystem health and human survival.
Thanks, Gloria Mbawazi, for that report, but also on recovering key species for the ecosystem restoration as the theme that will be driving this year's move to the World Wildlife Day. The United Nations, and their theme there, as mentioned earlier, they look forward to attending to conservation status of some of the most critically under-engaged species of the world fauna and flora. Now, the drive discussions also are driven towards imagining and also implementing solutions to conserve them. But the aims of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, that is 1, 12, 13, 14 and 15, also highlight onto the world range commitments to alleviate poverty, ensuring that sustainable living or sustainable resources are very well conserved. And over about 8,400 species of world fauna and flora are critically engaged, and also close to 30,000 are understood by the engaged vulnerable groups. Based on these estimations, it is suggested over that 1 million species are threatened to be extinguished. And in 2022, which we look forward to celebrating, Wildlife Day will therefore be driving onto the debate towards on how they will be improving the need to reserve the fate of critically under-engaged species, that is to be supporting their restoration, habitats, the ecosystems, and also promoting sustainable living among themselves. But how did Uganda celebrate the last UN celebrations for the wildlife that was held in Arua? It is reported that about from Professor Ephraim Kamuntu, who was the Uganda's biggest tourism product, according to him, Uganda's Minister of Tourism. By then, he was highlighting that ensuring communities living with the protected areas like upon themselves to protect wildlife given to them. So he highlighted on how the life we live across to these nearby settlements and also conserved or contained areas that are containing wildlife, it is important that we do take care of them. For example, if you're living towards the forest and maybe a monkey is living close by, never take it, maybe an advantage, or don't take it, very less to at least attribute a banana. Monkeys like bananas or yellows at some point. So as you take care of yourself when you're living close to the bush, close to the swampy areas, find out what new or what species are around there that you could actually take care of. But also, among the Wildlife Act of 200, among other things, were seeking to be established in the community. And as the country joins the rest to celebrate, we'll be now looking out for, or we look forward to hearing from the ministry on what they have to say towards what they promised about reserving over 200 species or communities with this flora and fauna. We take a break. Brita Kabanyoro, SMB, continues shortly. This is Smart 24.